Hey Dance Fam, and welcome back to this week's episode of the Dance Studio Scaled podcast. Today I have a bit of a personal one and it's a little bit off track, but it just felt right at the time to be sharing it. So as usual, if I'm sharing something that has been on my mind or have been in conversations that I've had recently, then I'm here to share it because I'm probably not alone and there are probably some of you listening who may be feeling the same way. And so that's what basically today is based on, but this is about me and things that are happening with me at the moment. So there's no pressure for anybody to feel that. You don't need to change because of it. I just thought I would bring you into where I am thinking at the moment, where I'm moving and some things that I'm changing because it's happening in real time and I thought I would share it. So what I will be talking about in this episode is the shifts that I've made that are essentially changing everything. Because over the last couple of months, I've made some choices and some decisions that are basically changing everything, both personally and professionally. Now, these are not big or dramatic. They're actually quite quiet. It's sort of the kind that don't necessarily look like much from the outside. You might not even know what's going on, but internally it's changing a lot for me. And now I will go into the process and the thoughts and the actions that are happening in more detail in future episodes. However, for this one, I'm just going to chat about this one thing only, and it's why I'm not attending any industry events this year. Now, before I go any further, I just want to say this really clearly. I see a lot of value in these events. I have been going to them for years. I've been exhibiting. I speak at these events. I get to network and meet people. I've built really beautiful friendships. I've met some great people. And I've seen firsthand how much work goes into running them. So I always love the idea of being able to support the organizers. And I also know that so many studio owners and teachers and dancers, they're getting things from these events. They're exciting, they're inspiring, they create an opportunity. So this isn't a negative take on events at all. This is just a personal decision that I've made for myself. Because over the last probably 12 months, something has really shifted for me. And like I mentioned before, both personally and professionally. When I stop and think about it, I actually like to describe it as a bit of an upgrade. So an upgrade in life and an upgrade in business. So I'm upgrading the way that I'm thinking, the way that I'm leading, but most importantly, the way that I want to show up for my family, as well as the studio owners that I work with. And so with that, I've had to really look at where I'm spending my time, my energy, and my attention. And like being completely transparent and honest with you, I was starting to feel a little bit disconnected. And again, not in a dramatic way, but just in really a quiet, subtle way. Like I would be sitting in rooms where conversations just didn't quite land the same for me anymore, where like all the information felt very surface level or very similar, where I wasn't necessarily being challenged in the way that I now need. And this is no one's fault. This is just growth. Because when you shift, your environment has to shift too. And I think this is something that we don't talk about enough. There will come a point where what used to feel exciting starts to feel a bit repetitive. There are things that used to feel aligned that might just start to feel slightly off. And you're left with a choice. Do you stay where you are because it's familiar, because you feel comfortable, it's what you know? Or do I step into something different? Do I challenge myself? Now, for me, this year has been about depth. My word of the year was refine. And so I always try to keep coming back to what that actually means. And it means not more information, just better conversations. Not more exposure, just more alignment and more impact that I can then give. I'm just past, and I'm not interested in being in rooms anymore where it's about the quick wins and the hustle culture. the surface level ideas or saying things that just sound good. I want to be in spaces where there's honesty and there's integrity, innovation, real growth, real support for each other. And I want to create that for the people I work with as well. Now, the other part of this is energy, like my energy. And I've become a lot more aware of this recently. And I question myself. I stop and I look in my life. I'm like, where do I feel energized? Where do I feel drained? What's lifting me up and what doesn't? And instead of pushing through that, I've just tried to start listening to it and consciously taking the time to listen to my thoughts. I'm consciously looking at ways to protect my time, to protect my mental space, and giving myself room to think clearly. Because there was a moment not too long ago where I was starting to feel a bit off. So I can only really describe it as like feeling a bit disconnected or out of alignment. Now, I also want to say this isn't the first time that I've felt like this throughout my career, but the difference is that I became aware of it and I did something about it faster than I usually would have in the past. So instead of just letting it sit there, feeling uncomfortable for weeks or months, I just made a conscious decision to shut as much down around me as I could. So obviously still prioritizing my clients and their work, but there were a lot of externals that I was able just to shut off and stop and make these decisions. And it allowed me then to question, what was I doing? Why was I doing it? And what actually felt right? And I gave myself the space to think, and that's what changed everything. Now, and so obviously off the back of this, that decision was about just not attending those events anymore because I questioned why, and I've loved them and there's nothing to say I won't be back next year, but for right now, that was the decision I came to. And I want to be really clear again on and saying that I'm not, just because I'm making this decision doesn't mean you should, doesn't mean anybody else should, because there is absolute value in all events and conferences and networking opportunities for connection, for exposure, for community. And if that's what you need right now, then this is exactly where you should be. But what I do want you to think about is this. Where are you spending your time right now? Where are you saying yes just because you always have? Where are you holding on to? What are you holding on to that maybe doesn't feel fully aligned anymore or feel right? And where could you be creating more space for you to actually think, for you to lead, for you to grow both personally and professionally? Because growth doesn't always look like doing more. And this is actually something I had to remind myself of because I found myself in that spiral of everything was going really well. So what's the next thing? How can I keep growing? But that's what I stopped and asked myself the questions. Is this something that I really want to do? Because sometimes growth can look like pulling back. Sometimes it can look like getting clear and just making different decisions, even if they don't make sense to everybody else. And that is a really important line to remember as well. So if you are currently in a season where things are feeling a little bit off, you don't have to ignore it. I just challenge you to get curious. If possible, give yourself the space to sit with yourself and go inside and just sort of ask those questions and just trust that you're going to find your way back to what feels right. And if you do want to have those deeper conversations, you know where to find me. So I'm going to leave this episode here. It's a nice, short, snappy one. I just wanted to give you an idea of what's been going on in my head. Maybe you can resonate with it, maybe not. But as I said, I just like sharing these thoughts. No, there are no right or wrong thoughts. It's just an idea, and hopefully it can support you or even someone that you know in a positive way. All right, everyone, I hope you have the most fantastic remainder of your week, and I will catch you same day, same time next week.